This is Scenic Roots. I'm Ray Bassett. Thanks for joining us. Medal of Honor Day, held on Tuesday this year, commemorates the men and women who have received the nation's highest military award for valor. Chattanooga, the birthplace of the Medal of Honor, is the home of the Charles H. Coolidge National Medal of Honor Heritage Center. On Saturday, the center opens a new exhibit honoring Captain Larry Taylor, the Chattanooga native awarded the Medal of Honor in 2023 for his heroic acts as a helicopter pilot during the Vietnam War. Vince Butler is the Major Gifts Officer at the National Medal of Honor Heritage Center. Vince, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Tell us more about this exhibit.
We're excited to officially unveil on March 29th the Medal of Honor exhibit for Captain Larry Taylor, who was a Chattanoogan who received the Medal of Honor from President Biden back in September of 2023. Originally was awarded the Silver Star during Vietnam on June 18th, 1968. And then due to the efforts of a lot of veterans and the Heritage Center and elected officials had made a case to elevate the Silver Star to a Medal of Honor, and President Biden agreed and signed the petition. And glad to say today that Larry Taylor is a recognized Medal of Honor recipient, but we went out and raised roughly $1 million thanks to some generous people, including Hamilton County government, City of Chattanooga, and the widow of Captain Taylor, Tony Taylor, was able to secure the funds, and it's taken us about a year to build the exhibit. And we're really proud to unveil this exhibit that tells Captain Taylor's story to the public on Saturday, March 29th.
Talk more about what people will see in the exhibit.
We're kind of the hidden treasure of Chattanooga because we opened up in February of 2020, and then 3 weeks after the opening, COVID shut everything down. So we've been actually operating since 1987 in different locations in Chattanooga, but we designed and built the current Heritage Center and the Aquarium Plaza. So when you walk in there, it is a museum, but it's a unique approach, I guess a unique way to do it. We tell the stories of Medal of Honor recipients, many of them tied to our area. We say Chattanooga is the birthplace of the Medal of Honor because the first medals awarded in our country's history were awarded for action in and around Chattanooga. So that's part of our city's heritage that a lot of people do not know. Chattanooga being the birthplace, the action, the incredible stories that started in 1862. It really started with April 12th, 1862, when 24 soldiers from the state of Ohio snuck as civilians down into Kennesaw, which was a town called Big Shanty, stole a train that we all know called the General. And that day, that story of stealing the General and destroying the rail line that was basically supplying the Confederates at the time, that is the Great Locomotive Chase. That is Andrew's Raid. On March 25th of 1863, 6 of the 24 men received the very first Medal of Honor in our country's history, starting with Jacob Parrott, a young 17-year-old private. So incredible story what happened that day. It's kind of almost like a Doolittle raid. If you know anything about World War II history, the Doolittle raid is when they took the bombers into and struck inside Japan for the first time. It was something nobody thought was possible. Andrew's raid the same way. He went into the heart of the Confederacy and created a disruption that helped turn the tide of the war, that set the stage for the battles of Chattanooga and Chickamauga that helped bring that war to an end and save the nation that we all enjoy today. Incredible story. But a few months after those first medals were awarded was the Chattanooga campaign, where there's 33 other medals awarded in and around Chattanooga, and includes some very iconic individuals, including the first and only woman to ever receive the Medal of Honor. Dr. Mary Walker was a surgeon up on Cameron Hill, where Blue Cross Blue Shield is located today. If you actually go up there, you'll see the Dr. Mary Walker Park, and there's some reader rails and some cannons, and her life story is told up on those reader rails there. Another famous individual, the father of Douglas MacArthur. Arthur MacArthur was a young first lieutenant, 19 years old, led the 1st Wisconsin, the Battle of Missionary Ridge, and an incredible story what he did on that day. But those two were actually part of the 33, and total of 52, what we call the first medals. And that tells the heritage of that medal, what it means and what it does. And it started here in Chattanooga 162 years ago. So we're excited about that. And Larry is the latest Chattanooga. We're very fortunate. We've had 6 Medal of Honor recipients from this area that we live in today. But we tell the stories of those first medals and all the Tennesseans that have received the Medal of Honor. And a lot of them are connected to our area. And we do it in a unique way where we build a life-size diorama with an actual recipient as they looked in the day of their action. So when you see Larry Taylor in his Cobra helicopter, it's going to look like he's a 24-year-old first lieutenant flying a Cobra helicopter in Vietnam. Every one of the mannequins are hand sculpted from an artist out of New York, and it will tell a story, and using sound and light and some video to tell a story about what that recipient did that embodies 6 character traits we always talk about through our education program or what we do every day, and that's citizenship, patriotism, courage, commitment, integrity, and sacrifice. Those 6 quintessential American values is what I like to say. We all have them, but how do we learn to act upon them at a certain time? You don't have to be in the military to show courage or sacrifice or commitment. It's in everyday life. It could be a kid in a schoolyard standing up to a bully. It could be a kid talking about this kid is bringing a gun to the school and you can go talk to a teacher about it. Teaching kids and adults, how do you make the harder right decision versus the easier wrong? And that's something we all deal with at all ages. And that's really the second part of our mission that not many people know we do is we bring children into the Heritage Center, and we have corporate boards and we have individuals come in and learn through the recipient stories and figure out ways that can represent them in their everyday life and how they can find that value within themselves to do something special in the community. That's the beauty. It's not talking about war. It's talking about individuals, an ordinary person doing something extraordinary to make a difference. And that's what we're about.
And then the unveiling of this exhibit on Saturday, March 29th, right around the time of Medal of Honor Day across the nation.
Yes.
It begins at 8 a.m. with an exclusive preview for members of the Medal of Honor Heritage Center. Yep. Then at 11 a.m., the Bricks of Honor dedication. Yep. That is something that is quarterly. Talk about that.
We actually have a program called Bricks of Honor where individuals can purchase a brick anywhere from as small as a 4x8 to as large as a 12x12 and honor a veteran, a friend, a business, anyone that wants to be kind of just recognized for doing something unique and special and impactful in the community. You can buy those online at our website, and then once every 3 or 4 months, we'll do a special dedication. So at 11 o'clock in that day, we're actually doing something different this time. We're going to have 3 individuals, and it's supposed to be a Veterans Day, but we had really bad weather back in November. We had to postpone it till this one. And so we're having 3 individuals come, one from Vietnam, one from the first Gulf War, and one from the Global War on Terror. That's going to talk about what service means to them as a veteran of that particular era, and talk about why it's important that it doesn't matter if you're in the military or not, but how you can find your way to serve and give back to your community to make a difference. And so it's a very unique one, but we're going to dedicate probably 115, 120 bricks. At the conclusion of the ceremony, we read all the names, and then we play taps. And so that is a special ceremony where we have a lot of veterans and families and active duty that actually come out there just to honor those individuals. And if you ever walk through the Aquarium Plaza, you can walk in front of the Heritage Center there, the walkover bridge, and you'll see probably about 400 bricks out there already. We hope eventually we're going to be into thousands. Right now we're about a little bit over 400 bricks out there right now, but it is an incredible way that people can support our mission and honor somebody at the same time. But that's at 11 o'clock. And then what everybody's wanting to know is, when can I see the new exhibit? And that is at 1 o'clock. Now, if you know Larry Taylor, he was a Vietnam veteran, very active in the community, a big philanthropist. People know Larry was very generous, but there's so many things he did in the community, but you never knew he did it because it was anonymous. He always said if there's a need, somebody has to step up, fill that need, but you don't need to get credit for it. And that was quintessential what Larry was about, is doing it because it was needed and the right thing to do, not because I wanted to have my name somewhere or be promoted or recognized. And so he had a lot of friends and a lot of fans that know his story, want to come out there and honor him, have been waiting for this day to come. So it's going to be very busy. So we basically said you've got to buy a ticket to get in line for the opening weekend. And the ribbon cutting will be at 1 o'clock. But we still encourage you, if you can't come at 1 o'clock, come in the afternoon, come on Sunday or next week. But it is something that I do believe this community has been looking for since he had the Welcome Home Parade on September 11, 2023, when he came back from D.C. after receiving the medal. We had well over 5,000 people line the streets for that parade. It was an incredible day to honor him. But Chattanooga has a long history of being very patriotic, supporting and active duty in the veteran community. I think this is another way they can do it and honor the Vietnam generation, which is sometimes throughout our time has not always been recognized for what they did in the 70s. So.
And beyond this exhibit adding to that history, this fall will be another chapter, yes. And that will be the National Medal of Honor Convention.
Yes, once a year, all living Medal of Honor recipients gather somewhere in the country. This is probably going back 2 years ago. We were asked to consider bidding on it. At the time, they don't go to small markets like this. Typically, like 2 years ago, it was New Orleans. Last year was San Antonio. Next year, it's Detroit. It's typically a major metropolitan area that will do this. But we were asked to consider it. We did say we're going to do it. We worked with Chattanooga Tourism, city and county government, and state of Tennessee, and we put together a bid to host this gathering. And we were awarded the 2025 Medal of Honor celebration, we're calling it. It starts on September 30th, and we are the birthplace. So what better way to kick off this event with something really special, which I'm not going to get into, but something on September 30th we'll announce in a few months that I think is going to be something that is going to be really, really unique to kick off the convention. All living recipients will come to Chattanooga. They will be basically public events, private events. There's a big veteran event we're planning. We will have a gala, a black tie gala on Saturday, October the 4th, where people can go to this gala. It is emceed by Gary Sinise. There's some other neat things. There's 4 individuals we're going to honor that day that are A-list celebrities. Going to bring kind of the really unique factor, besides having a Medal of Honor recipients here, but you have these 4 really high-profile individuals come to town to receive the awards. And there's one that's in Hollywood, there's one that's in the media, there's a philanthropist, and then there's one that's just through their life's work that really represent those 6 values that embody the Medal of Honor. And we're really excited about it. There's going to be a lot of news coming out over the next couple of months as we move closer to that. But yeah, it's going to be something I think Chattanooga has not seen since the very first Armed Forces Day Parade in Chattanooga, right after World War II, and the very first ones have. And you had 3 new Medal of Honor recipients out of World War II, Coolidge, and Paul Huff, in a Jeep that had been driven by Alvin York. And there's a picture of it inside the Heritage Center. And that was really the first time a lot of our war heroes were coming back from Germany and Japan, and Chattanooga and Hamilton County came together to do the very first Armed Forces Day Parade. And I do believe it's going to be something like that. They will be all over the community. They'll be visiting schools. They will be in various public places at the Heritage Center. So that week is an opportunity for our region to come together to honor the living Medal of Honor recipients. But by honoring them, we're also honoring all men and women that have served over the years, all our veterans, but plus our active duty. And I think it's a great opportunity to put a side of our city that makes me proud as a Chattanoogan to honor our veterans and our active duty personnel.
And for people who want to check it all out, for people who want to keep up on all of it, because there's a lot,
yes,
where can they go online?
They can go to our website, MOHHC.org. That's Medal of Honor Heritage Center.org. It's the first letter of each word. And you can go there and you can sign up for our newsletter to receive all the updates, learn more about our educational program. We have an incredible teacher fellowship program that works with schools throughout the region to take teachers to help them to design classroom activities and curriculum and materials to share those recipient stories as part of their lesson plans. They help them meet the state standards, but to teach the next generation, our future leaders, to inspire them with these stories, to help them understand that they have these values within themselves, but how do they learn to act upon them to do something special? So that's an incredible program that's grown leaps and bounds, that's really touching the people, I believe, which is the ones that at some point the next generation is going to have to answer a bell. Whatever it is in our world, we don't know, but at some point that generation will be the ones that are out there defending our freedoms and liberties. So we need to make sure they understand what those are. So past generations have set up and made that call and answered that challenge. I want to make sure that generation comes forward, that they understand the sacrifices of previous generations, so the freedoms and liberties we all have today, that they continue to be protected.
All right, Vince, thanks so much.
All right, well, thank you for having me today. And again, go to our website and get more information. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
Dance and film blend to tell the story of vacant spaces in Ghost Factory, the next performance from UTC Live on our campus, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. It happens Friday, starting at 7 p.m. in the Roland Hayes Concert Hall at UTC's Fine Arts Center, where there will also be a video installation in the lobby before and after the show as part of the experience. Ghost Factory, presented by Bridgeman Packer Dance, led by Art Bridgeman and Myrna Packer, is inspired by residents and deserted factories in Johnson City, a town in upstate New York, and Chattanooga. I spoke with Art and Myrna a few weeks ago. Art, Myrna, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ray.
Thank you. Great to talk with you.
Tell us more about Bridgeman Packer Dance.
It's a collaboration between myself, Myrna Packer, and Art Bridgeman. What people see on stage is a result of a very long and deep artistic conversation between the two of us. We collaborate on the concept of our work, on the choreography, and in the performance. Our work has a unique genre that we've been developing, which is the integration of our live performance with video technology. So on stage, you will see projections, often of ourselves, often life size, so that we actually multiply on stage. And I can dance with Art live, and I also can dance with his image. I can dance with my own image. There are times that there might be 20 of our images on stage. 2 of them are live and others are virtual. And in terms of Ghost Factory, those images are metaphors for the lives spent in these factories and of their stories that might be hidden in the walls.
This is inspired by residents of Johnson City in upstate New York, home to deserted factories, but there's also a Chattanooga ingredient to all this.
Yes. In addition to many interviews we had with former factory workers in upstate New York, we realized that there was kind of a universality of life experience, regardless of where you live in the country. And when we travel with this show, we like to interview individuals from the local town where we perform and ask about their experience working in factories. And so we have several people in the Chattanooga area who worked at the combustion engineering firm, at Duracell, at Wayland Foundry. There are a number of places where we interviewed and were able to get interviews of former factory workers from the Chattanooga area and bring them into this project.
And that was with the great help of Bob Boyer, who is the director of the series. He found these people, identified them, and did the interviews. And we're also including his beautiful photography of the old buildings. We really like that parallel that happens of people's experiences across the country, but also specifically the human stories connected with architecture. In this case, it's the architecture of the industries and what happens to that architecture when the industry leaves. Does it go into decay? Is it repurposed? But most interesting to us are the human stories involved, the individual human stories. So when we first saw these old deserted factories upstate New York, our imagination started going, what stories, what lives were spent there? So we were able to interview probably up to 45, 50 people from that town. Some of them had worked in the factories. Some of them, their parents or grandparents had worked in the factories, and some had grown up in a post-industrial town with those factories as the backdrop of their lives. And that kind of history over decades of stories upon stories upon stories really excited us. So some of their voices are woven through the soundtrack of the stage work. They're layered, kind of like a collage, a sound collage. They're distilled, their voices, over a beautiful original musical composition by Ansel Bobrow. We realized that we loved that collage effect in the sound of the stage work, but we also wanted to give more weight to their actual stories. So that then became the idea to have a lobby installation where it's more of the actual oral histories of the people, both from Johnson City and then, as Art mentioned, from each place where we perform.
What's one story of all the stories that you've heard that has touched you the most?
It's Julie Dino from Johnson City, New York. She was interviewed when she was 98. She is now 102. She was remembering in detail her experience of working in the shoe factory when she was in her early 20s and how difficult it was to keep up the pace because the conveyor belt was moving and she had to finish her part of the shoe to get it back on the conveyor belt in time. And if she didn't, the older workers would get mad at her. And then she talked about her 2 best friends, how they would go out to lunch together, how her friend Mary would walk across the railroad tracks in her high heels to go to lunch. And I just loved that image. So her voice is prominent throughout the stage work. And she's also in the installation talking on her rocking chair on her front porch. There's a section of Ghost Factory that I perform that's all to her voice. And I feel like I somehow, at least I attempt to embody her story. And the poignancy, she says over and over again, she says, they're all gone, all gone. And she's referring to her dear friends who worked there. Her husband had worked there. Also the buildings, that time, all gone.
That interview was especially poignant. There were a number of people who talked about this is a shoe factory where things move quickly. And this corporation made 50 million pairs of shoes a year. They supplied most of the military for World War II, the boots and so forth, World War II. It was a big operation with up to, I think, 20 large factory buildings in one little town. So it was a big operation. One of them, actually, a woman talked about her father who had some digits missing because of the stamp presses on these machines. You have to be very careful when they're cutting the leather to keep your fingers out of the stamping device. Apparently, there were many situations where people would lose a digit here and there. And she just told stories about sitting at dinner with her father, and her father would kind of point to somewhere, and then he'd realize his finger wasn't there. It took him a while to adjust to the injury he sustained in the factory. And then also that there were just no OSHA rules at the time. It was just part of the agreement was just do the best you can. And this company really tried to take care of people if they got injured. But injuries did occur quite a bit in those days. We're talking about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And then there are just some really wonderful community stories about people really connecting with each other, and that there was a real sense of togetherness and love of people who worked in your own factory. And we felt that told us a lot about how when you have a job that's usually like a lifetime job for many of these, your working family becomes another family, which is very important and is meaningful.
We're speaking with Art Bridgeman and Myrna Packer of Bridgeman Packer Dance, which presents Ghost Factory at UTC Live, Friday night here on our campus, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga.
You have collaborated in choreography and performance since 1978. How did that begin? How did you arrive at what you call video partnering, which we will see on display here at UTC?
We met dancing in a few different companies in New York City, and we immediately had a connection with each other and started choreographing together and developing what we value. A lot of that is exploring the human experience. What is this thing that we are all doing, going through life, being a human being? And so our work through the first, I would say, half of our careers together had a lot to do with physical partnering, and that was a metaphor for the push and pull in relationship. And in each of the works, we would explore that in different ways and exploring different topics. But again, coming back to the human experience. And I say that is different from choreography that is more interested in abstract form. There's always abstract form in dance. And for us, it is how do we use that to say something about our experience? So about 20 years ago, we started, it was right around the time that video cameras and projectors on a consumer level were becoming more affordable. And we either borrowed or bought our first one, I can't remember, and started experimenting with it. I was the one who resisted the whole idea. I felt that what I had seen at that point of video on stage, I found distracting. That as an audience, I had to choose between watching the dancers or watching the video, and it would minimize the size of the dancers in contrast to the video. But one day, Art went into our studio and he filmed himself and projected himself life-size. And he called me out behind where we live and said, come look at this. And he was projecting his life-size image and he was stepping in and out of it. And the creative light bulbs went off in my mind, and I saw what technology could do to help us say, with a new palette, a lot of what had been saying about relationship to self. I saw him fracturing off of himself. I saw, right, visually a metaphor for different sides of oneself. And I also saw the question of what is real and what is image, which becomes more and more and more important in how we're living today, with the amount of screens that we are looking at all the time, and questioning what is our reality and what is AI and what was the thought I just had. All of those questions about really what is reality becomes visual when we are interacting with our video images or with an environment. So, for example, in Ghost Factory, we filmed ourselves in the old deserted factories. We got permission to go in there. And so that's projected on stage. And as live performers, we're partnering not only with our own images, but we're partnering with those environments. In each piece that we made since that moment that I was describing in our studio, which was about 20 years ago, we've made about 10 major works on different topics, and each one explores in a different way this interaction of the live and the virtual. And some of the video projections are pre-recorded and edited, and some are live cameras on stage. So our live image gets projected. Sometimes it is simultaneously computer processed, so we can create a time delay of our own image, almost like a Canon, a visual Canon. We can also have the images transformed. So there are moments in Ghost Factory where the images get transformed into just the outline of our bodies, which is very ghost-like, kind of translucent. So our choreography encompasses the movements that we are doing live on stage, but also the choreography that we do on video, and also the choreography of how all of those fit together into one piece on stage.
We really try to immerse ourselves into the projections. For instance, we have a see-through scrim that we hang on stage, and we can perform in front of it. And when the light is on us, you can see us behind it. And when there's a projection on the scrim and you see us behind the scrim, we actually blend right into it. We're immersed into the projection. And I think that that's a really wonderful way of doing two things, creating an environment and then interacting with that environment. But it also feels like to the audience as if we're coming out of the walls of these buildings. Therefore, that sense of ghost factory. There are ghost factories and they're abandoned factory buildings. And so that has a kind of unusual quality to it, but also the fact that we sometimes are the ghosts coming out of those factories. And I think that the show that we're doing at UTC on the 28th really blends these different elements: the video projections, live performance, video processing, where we have cameras recording us live on stage and then processing our images in many different ways.
For more information on the show here at UTC and the installation alongside, people can visit calendar.utc.edu and search for Ghost Factory. It takes place on Friday, March 28th, starting at 7 p.m. The installation will be open at 7 p.m. The performance is at 7:30 p.m. For more information about Bridgeman Packer Dance, where can people go online?
To our website, bridgemanpacker.org, or to our Instagram page, Bridgeman Packer Dance, our Facebook page, Bridgeman Packer Dance. We will come out to the lobby after the performance to greet people and answer any questions. And the installation will also be active after the performance.
We're very excited to be coming to Chattanooga and sharing our work with the Chattanooga community. Ghost Factory is a wonderful, exciting show. We hope you get to see it.
All right. Myrna, Art, thanks so much.
Thank you, Ray. Have a beautiful day.
I'm Ray Bassett. Join us again next time for Scenic Roots.